In this video, we're going to take a quick look at practicing how to write the equation of a circle. So we first need to remember that our basic equation of a circle is going to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So if you look at our first problem, it says the center of our circle is going to be 2, -8, and we have a radius that's equal to 7. So from our center point here, we're able to identify both our h and our k values that get plugged into our equation. So our h value is equal to 2, and our k value is equal to -8. It states that our radius is equal to 7. So now I'm going to take each one of these values and input it into my equation. So my equation for my circle with my inputted values will now be x minus 2 squared plus y minus a -8 squared is equal to 7 squared. Now just to simplify this a little bit, I have to watch my signs. I have minus and negative. So I end up getting a final equation of x minus 2 squared plus y plus 8, watch the sign again, squared is equal to 49. In our second equation here, we have a little bit different, working the opposite direction. Here we are starting off given that equation, and it wants to know what are our center points and what is our radius. So we're going to steal our center points. Remember, our basic equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. And our center point is always going to be hk. So I can grab these points right from my equation. So if I start off here, I have a positive 1 and a -4. So I'm going to watch my signs here. So if it looks at first that my h value might be equal to a positive 1. But if I plug an h value of a positive 1 into my equation, my sign would be negative. So I have to think about, how did this sign change to be a positive 1? The only way we got that was like in our last problem, where I had to say minus and negative. So I know my h value here is equal to -1. My my k value here is a -4, so it says y minus 4. So my k value is going to be a positive 4, because if I plug a positive 4 into my equation, it looks like it's negative, but it's just the way the equation's written. For this last part here, I want to find my radius value. So for my radius value, I'm going to get that from here. So here it says r squared, in this case, is equal to 50. So if I want r by itself, I need to square root both sides. So I get r is equal to, let's see, 50 gets broken down into a 25 times 2. So that's going to give me 5 radical 2. So for my final answers here, I'm going to take my h and k values and write that my center is equal to -1, 4, and my radius is equal to 5 radical 2. In problem number 3, we want to write the equation of a circle whose diameter is equal to 36 and whose center is the origin. So we want to remember that for our center origin point here, I'm just going to highlight that in blue, our center origin is going to be the point 0, 0. So for that one, that means if I are relating that to our h and k value, that means we have an h value equal to 0 and a k value equal to 0. Now we have to pay really close attention with this problem. This is a trick here. It gives us our diameter, but we cannot use our diameter in our formula. the diameter is going to be used in order to calculate our radius. Remember, the relationship between a diameter and radius is that the radius is equal to half of our diameter. So if our diameter is 36, then our radius must equal 18. So now I can go ahead and write my final equation by plugging in my values. So I get that the equation of the circle will be x squared plus y squared is equal to my radius squared of 18. In number 4, it says find the coordinates of the center and the radius of the circle given our equation. So if I'm looking at this one, I automatically am going to think of the 24 as giving me my radius. And then this first part of the equation will give me my center point. So with this problem here, I want to first figure out what is my h value and what is my k value. So with this one, I have a h value of 5, and it appears that there is no k value, but we don't write none, we just write that our k value therefore is equal to 0. From here, I get that my r squared value is equal to 24. Be careful here, don't write that your radius equals 24. This 24 represents r squared. So in order to find our actual radius value, our r value, we have to take the square root. So I get that r is equal to the square root of 24. So I'm thinking of perfect squares that go into 24, like 4 and 6. So I get r is equal to 2 radical 6. So to write out my final solution here, I get a center point is going to be the point 5, 0, and my radius is equal to 2 radical 6. In our fifth problem, it says verify. So when I see verify, I'm thinking of proving, plugging in, something like that. Verify whether the point -4, 8 lies on our given circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute this point -4, 8 into my equation. And the points I'm going to plug it in for are going to be my x and y values. If it is indeed true that when I plug -4, 8 into my equation over here for x and y's, and it equals 17, then I know that the point makes the equation true, and therefore it lies on the circle. So I can go through and plug everything and see what happens. So I'm going to get -4 plus 3 squared plus 8 minus 4 squared is equal to 17. So as I simplify this, I have a -4 plus 3 gives me a -1 squared plus 8 minus 4 is 4 squared is equal to 17. Now watch your sign here, especially if you're entering this into your calculator. A -1 squared does not equal a -1. A -1 squared is equal to a +1. Plus 16 is equal to 17. Please make sure you always write this last step. This is what shows it actually works. We have our left side equal to our right side, so we know it must be true. So because our work just proved here that 17 is equal to 17 when we substituted that point in, I can say, therefore, the point -4, 8 is on the circle. Let's take a look at one more here before we finish up, and that's going to be, it says, what is an equation of a circle? It's giving us a center point of -5, 3, and it passes through the point -1, +3. So for this problem right here, this is really different than any that we've looked at so far. It's definitely a lot more challenging. So I'm going to go ahead and just take a look at this graph to figure out, can I figure out anything from this picture? So I'm going to be at -5, +3, which is about here. I'll estimate. There's my center point. And it says it passes through the point -1, +3. So what that means is if I was to draw what this circle would look like, I'm going to have a circle that's going to pass through this point and goes like that. So if I was to connect my center point with the point on the circle, I get a radius. So here I have two options. I can see that with this one I really lucked out, and I'm actually able to just calculate what my radius is. I can find that value just by counting the boxes. Remember, when we started off here, we were at a x value of -5 here and a -1x value for the point that's on it. So that means that this horizontal change that's happening here from -5 to -1 is going to be a change of 4. So I get that the radius for this circle is equal to 4. Now, if I wasn't given a point that was nice and horizontal like this one, or say I was given one that was maybe looked something like this as a radius, I'd need to actually calculate that by using the distance formula. So the distance formula, remember, is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So we lucked out and didn't have to do that this time, but we might have to do that in the future. So just keep that in mind that you might have to use the distance formula. So now I'm going to go ahead and just plug in my values that I know into my equation of a circle formula. So remember, your equation of a circle is going to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. In this case, my h and k values are coming directly from my center point. So I have an h value that's equal to -5, a k value equal to 3, and my r value radius is equal to 4. Watch your signs when you plug these in. So I'm going to get x minus a -5. So I can just turn that to an x plus 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared is equal to my radius squared, so 4 squared is 16.